16. That is the number of fear and greed right now in this space. It is crazy to think that we are now at this low of a fear and greed level, and we are still at over $3+ trillion. If we are realistically speaking looking at the fear and greed index, 16 is lower than going all the way back to our April lows. Okay. I mean, some points here it was at like 15 or so, but we are back to these lows. Now, again, most people at this moment are thinking bear market. It's all over. This is the end of it all. Because again, the sentiment has been peak negative for quite some time, and over the last couple days, it has gotten severely worse. When we are looking at fear and greed, this tells us if, number one, the market is too bullish or too bearish. We are now in the too bearish point of the market, where we should start to see a violent recovery. It's crazy to think that we are at these levels right now. Bitcoin is still around $90,000+. We're at about 96K currently. Yes, we still have a lot of work to do here. Yes, I would love for us to close the weekly above the trend line that we talked about prior, which is, this one right here. It's going to take a little bit of work here, obviously, but, I'm mainly watching to see if we can get this closed, because if we manage to close above this trend line and regain this, it'll be very bullish for Bitcoin. Now, is it the end of the world if we lose this trend? No, of course not. But again, it is the fact that structure is broken. It means that we are in a bearish territory, and it is a little bit concerning. But again, it's not like the end of the world. It doesn't mean that, we are in the bear market or anything like that. It just means that we could see lower price action. Now, I did talk about some of the prices that I was really looking at when it comes back to Bitcoin. Mainly, that demand zone would be about 86.8K to roughly about like 94.2K. And the main reason that we were looking at this is it's basically major resistance and support being retested within this zone. So again, if we're looking at this right now, could we see a little bit more pain? Sure, we can. But again, fear and greed is already telling us that this market is extremely fearful at this moment. And, it's not just crypto, right? Like, if we're thinking about CMC's fear and greed index, Bitcoin's is at 10 right now. I mean, it is insane. Like, this is the lowest fear and greed index on Bitcoin since going back to like 2020. But also stocks. Stocks are also in extreme fear at about 22. This is wild. It's wild to see these markets being this fearful. Now, when it comes back to XRP, I really do wish that they had individual fear and greed indexes for altcoins and stuff. When it comes back to XRP, we're still holding the original trend that we were talking about on XRP. We addressed how we could very well, retest some of, these lows. You could draw this a little bit better as well. Like, for example, we can connect the bottom of this to these candles, and then we have our wick back here from the third. You could draw it like this, sure, but regardless of that, we expected XRP to potentially retest this trend line anyways, and with the recent Bitcoin move, we're basically getting that move on this chart anyways. So again, overall, not a very bearish looking chart until we start to lose some of these recent lows. Like, if we're starting to lose these lows on this chart, that would be, pretty bearish on structure wise. So again, XRP is still not looking too bad here at the moment. But again, I would imagine that a lot of people are very, very scared right now, concerned, worried, panicked, and also just negative, right? Negative sentiment across the board. So again, typically when we see this negative sentiment like this and we see extreme fear, you already know You want to buy when there's blood in the streets. So, extreme fear basically tells us that fear is flooding the streets right now. Blood is out there in the water, and, it's time to be a shark. But outside of that, we also got an update regarding this. This was about 29 minutes ago. We have Bitcoin plunges below 100K to 6-month low amid extreme fear. Bitcoin dropped to around 94K on November 14th, closing at $96,101 after a more than 5% decline fueled by economic concerns, slower Federal Reserve rate cuts, and reduced ETF inflows that led to $683 million in liquidations. The Bitcoin Fear and Greed Index reached 10, as you guys can see over here. This is its lowest level since 2020 in COVID, during the COVID crash, indicating extreme investor panic. JP Morgan analysts pinpointed 94K as a key support level based on mining costs and upheld their forecast for Bitcoin to hit 170K within 6 to 12 months. Now, again, I don't really, care too much about what JP Morgan is saying, but one thing is certain here. If we can go back to 2020, during the COVID crash, I'm sure that there's a lot of people that would be lined up wanting to buy. Today, everyone is scared. They're too panicked. They're concerned. They don't want to, touch crypto now. And that's typically when you want to start being bullish. Now, what's there to be bullish on, right? Price action is still, very negative. What's going to support the next move here if, everyone's getting wiped out and, price action's extremely bearish, nobody wants to touch crypto? Well, it's market conditions improving. This is through major, developments. Like, for an example, the White House, just announced back on the 13th that the government shutdown has ended. This is definitely a big one to focus on, okay? This stalled liquidity in a big way. We talked about that. Now, is it an immediate reaction? Because a lot of people will say, well, the government shutdown ended. I thought we were supposed to pump, right? Well, over here, we have from Ted Pillows, Bitcoin consolidated for 2 weeks after the US government shutdown ended in 2019. Maybe something similar could happen again. Bitcoin could tap 88 to 90K zone before the local bottom formation, which also kind of aligns with my thought process here on like 86.8K to like 94K. And this is what we saw back in 2019. Let me just open this up in a new tab. So back in 2019, you had the big drop. We consolidated, and then we started to pump back to the upside. Again, we already have that big drop off. We're starting to slightly consolidate. I mean, even if we're looking at this like on the 24-hour span, it's still kind of dropping. We have, one good day so far. On the 4-hour, again, not much price action to go off of. It's still way too early to say like if Bitcoin is bottomed. I still think that we have a little bit more pain here before we start to kind of really consolidate and maybe just chop a little bit. Again, it's very similar to our recent moves down, right? Like, we would want to see something like this happen where we start to kind of just consolidate, form a bottom, and then get that big impulsive move. It's going to take a little bit of time, so just be cautious here. Just be very patient. But if, times are very similar to like 2019 with the government shutdown, then, we would be expecting a little bit more pain, then a reversal after we consolidate. Now, again, another big thing to support this isn't just so much the government shutdown. We actually just got a video clip that got posted earlier today. This got posted from Mr. Whale. This is Trump talking about $20 trillion could be injected into the U.S. economy by the end of 2025. So check this out. Listen closely.
Investing in America, $20 trillion. No country's ever done anywhere even near that, like a fraction of that. Biden did less than $1 trillion in 4 years. I did 20 trillion. We're going to do over 17 trillion in 8 months. By the time we end, we could do over $20 trillion. There's never, in China, no matter where you go, there's never been anything like it. We are building up something that's unbelievable. And a big part of that are the tariffs, because they don't want to have to pay the tariffs because it's so unsustainable that they come and build the pharmaceuticals and the chips and all of the things. They're coming into the United States and they're building them. It's a miracle what's happening. We are building the greatest country in the world, economically, greater than we've ever been before.
So obviously, $20 trillion could be injected, and the key word there is could. We don't know how much money is going to enter this market. We don't know how much money is going to enter the US economy. But if we are going to see liquidity improve, which is exactly what we've been hearing, then this could definitely support the market bounce. Again, we can't just go all in and say, all right, well, that's it. We heard that Trump's going to, inject $20 trillion into the US economy through tariffs and all this stuff. No, we can't think like that. The main thing that we're focused on here isn't so much all of the noise. Okay, because again, I still think that this video is noise until we start to see it. The main thing that we are focused on here is Bitcoin reclaiming crucial levels to support altcoins, to support XRP, to support the market. We need to break back above 105.3K. And even then, we really want to see a big push, a much larger push, if you will, on Bitcoin back above like 116 and then back above $120,000. After that, we target the all-time high. And if we can manage to break over that, that will be very bullish. But initially, we need to see something happen here. We need to see some sort of, sign of strength or something on Bitcoin until we start to get bullish again. We need to be very cautious at this moment. Now, a lot of people have been, speculating on where this 20 trillion will come from. A lot of people think that it's the $2,000 tariff payments. For an example, that's this one. This was the $2,000, payment that Trump announced that, we're going to issue a dividend to our middle income people and lower income people of about $2,000, and we're going to use the remaining tariffs to lower the debt. Again, if we're looking at this, it's just like the, stimulus payments back in 2020, but this does not hit, the economy until next year, because we also heard from Trump that it's going to be sometime next year. We don't know when, but it's going to be sometime next year where those payments go out. So again, this will not really affect the markets until that happens. And even by that point, the market could very well be topped out. So I'm not dead set on this being a very bullish thing for the market until we see, the market reversal and see where we are at that moment. But the main thing that I'm focused on here and the main thing that I'm really watching for is the government shutdown to really have an effect on markets, aka we start to see liquidity improve. We start to see, just major developments around, money being spent on certain things, because again, that does force the hand of the printer. And then with that, we do start to see money hitting the economy, supporting markets a bit more, because again, we have been constricted for, well over 40 days because of the government shutdown. So liquidity was kind of frozen. And when we start to see liquidity improve, when we start to see liquidity hitting markets, crypto loves liquidity more than any other market. So that's like the main reason why I feel as if the markets have been in a major downtrend lately, but then also sentiment has been pretty bearish as well. And I think that that's very, very clear when you are looking at fear and greed across the board. I think that this is like a massive market reset at this point. I think that the markets are resetting upon the idea of, number one, the shutdown ending, number two, liquidity possibly improving, and then also, number three, you really just got to shake the tree before the biggest run of the cycle really begins. And I think that that's very clear, even going back to 2020, even going back to 2017 and prior cycles as well. So with that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you guys did, definitely like, subscribe, turn notifications on because I'm more free content. You guys are more than welcome to follow me on Twitter and join the free Discord in the description below. And with that being said, guys, this has been Nick. Thanks for watching. Peace out.